Welcome, students. Thank you for joining us. I'm Amber Nicholson. I'm the Assistant Director of the Health Professions Advising Center at the University of California, Riverside, and I'm joined today by my colleague, Dr. Jennifer Kavetsky, the coordinator of the Undergraduate Writing Center. We're going to be spending our afternoon together sharing with you how to tell your story through your application personal statement. As we get started, I'm going to turn the mic over to Dr. Jennifer Kavetsky.
Hi, everyone. We like to start with a disclaimer that writing is a subjective and personal process. There's no one right way to approach essay writing. If you have a clear vision for how you want your essay to sound, go for it. That's great. This session is designed to share practical ideas and suggestions for crafting an effective personal statement. A personal statement is designed to help the admissions committee learn more about you outside of grades and test scores. Generally, we recommend focusing on 3 questions for your essay. Where have you been? Where are you now? Where are you going? A personal statement may also include your motivation for pursuing medicine, how clinical or extracurricular involvement helped you confirm that interest, information about your personal characteristics, or it may demonstrate your understanding of the profession. But the 3-part model of how your initial interest in healthcare began, how you explored and confirmed your interests, and what are your future goals will remain the backbone of the essay. Step 1 is to carefully read the prompt. I know it seems obvious, but you'd be surprised how often we see well-written essays that don't address the prompt. This is especially important for secondaries. For primary applications, the prompt will usually be some version of, why have you selected this field? Different health professions have different length guidelines, but generally personal statements are between 1 and 1.5 pages single-spaced.
If you've ever been part of a construction project or large event, you've likely learned that your project planning and preparation are equal to, if not more important than, your execution. Writing is no different. Unfortunately, there's not going to be a situation where you sit down at your laptop with a blank Word document and complete a personal statement draft by the time your coffee is gone. That just isn't real life. Instead, consider starting your writing process by journaling your thoughts on the questions to the left. The first 4 questions are linked to our 3-part essay framework of how you initially became interested in medicine, how you've clinically explored and confirmed your interest, and what you think your future goals and objectives are. Question 5 will assist you in determining if submitting a disadvantage statement is appropriate or not, and if so, what relevant personal information would be included in this disadvantage statement. Lastly, question 6 will assist students who are applying to academic record enhancing post-bac programs prior to starting professional school. These students should identify what issues, challenges, or barriers have impacted their academic studies, what specific changes they made to navigate their situation, and what evidence they can provide that demonstrates their academic readiness for medical school. One final point about preparation is when considering extracurricular activities, yes, the main focus of your personal statement will likely be on activities that are clinical in nature. However, there is an additional work and activities section of the application where students will include the same extracurricular experiences from their personal statement, but will also go on to share volunteer experiences, research, paid employment of any kind, leadership, personal development organizations, religious experiences, cultural organizations, or even Greek affiliations. Hopefully you've been keeping a comprehensive resume or list of your outside involvements during college, because you will need that for your work and activities section as part of your primary application.
It can be helpful to think of the personal statement as a story that begins with the introduction, moves through the middle of the essay, and ends with the conclusion. We recommend that personal statements be organized in chronological order because that's usually the easiest for both the writer and the reader. That said, if you feel that a story is best told out of order, go for it. I tend to see this approach most often with older students who may have worked in other fields before deciding to pursue medicine. They have more ground to cover, so it doesn't always make sense to begin at the beginning. Generally, personal statements begin with a brief story or overview of what initially sparked your interest in healthcare. The body of the essay gives examples of how you explored and confirmed your interest in medicine. Finally, the essay ends with a brief discussion of your future goals. Common questions include, but aren't I supposed to tell a story? Yes, you're telling the story about how you've determined that medicine is the right career for you. Remember, you're not applying for a degree in fiction writing. You don't need to worry about the dialogue or character motivation or crafting a sophisticated narrative structure. Another common question is, how do I stand out? You stand out by thoughtfully and clearly articulating your why. There's no scenario in which the admission committee is going to read the first sentence or the first paragraph or even the entire essay, put the application down and say, get this person on the phone and admit them right now. The goal of the personal statement is to demonstrate that you're a thoughtful, mature candidate who they would like to interview. For the introduction, ask yourself, what was the spark that lit your match? It doesn't have to be a moment when the heavens opened up and the angels sang. But looking back, you can usually identify an experience that started you on this path, even if you didn't realize it at the time. Generally, you want to avoid the really cliched, boring opening lines, like, ever since I was 5, I always wanted to be a doctor. You haven't always wanted to be anything. When you were a baby, you didn't know you had feet. You certainly didn't know what career you wanted to pursue. Another one to avoid is, allow me to introduce myself. My name is, they know, it's on your application. Another common opening line to avoid is, the question asked me to discuss. Again, they know, they wrote it. That said, it can be a helpful pre-writing technique to rephrase the question in your own words. Just make sure to take that part out before you submit your essay. On the right side of the slide, we have a sample introduction. Amber and I deliberately chose examples that were kind of average. You can go on the internet and find examples of the 10 best Harvard Medical School application essays, but really, nobody writes like that. Those people didn't even write like that. Those essays have gone through at least one more round of editing between when they were submitted and when they were published. Also, more than 10 people got into Harvard Medical School. We wish that instead there was a book of essays that got the job done. So this is an example of a successful student essay, student intro, and it got the job done. So growing up in place, oral health care was considered a luxury rather than a necessity. Most people expected teeth to degrade as they aged. Once I moved to the US, I realized that visiting the dentist was critical to maintaining proper overall health. Unfortunately, as immigrants, my family could not afford dental care until my father was able to maintain a stable job where dental insurance was a reasonable expense. When I was finally able to see my first dentist and later get braces and have emergency oral surgery, my interest in the field of dentistry began. Is this the best introduction we've ever read? No, but it's clear, easy to read, clearly communicates the person's interest, and makes me want to read the rest of the essay.
Before you begin crafting your body paragraphs, it's helpful to identify the theme of your essay. I know the term theme can often make science majors uncomfortable, so an alternative way to think about a theme is quote unquote identifying your why. We understand that sometimes the why behind our decisions are not tangible reasons, and instead they're more of a feeling. A student might say, I don't know, I just love it. And although it is great and important to enjoy what we do, that reasoning won't assist an admissions committee in understanding your interest in and aptitude for a particular career. Additionally, as you're probably scanning our hexagon of themes, you might be feeling as if you identify with most or all of these reasons to pursue a career in the health field. That is also great, and you're definitely making writing progress. However, these essays do have very limited character counts, and it would not be realistic to discuss all of these themes in a 1 to 1.5 single-spaced paged essay. For students who have identified an interest in serving underserved communities as their primary motivator for pursuing medicine, they might be discussing the importance of health education, prevention, language barriers, or likely lifestyle management as ways that they plan to support these same communities. This would, in essence, comprise their theme. Other students are not really interested in lifestyle health management and instead are more interested in genetic abnormalities and or specialty care. Although it is not common to see a student identify a medical specialty in their personal statement, this can become your theme if you have appropriate clinical, service, or research experience that support your exploration and confirmation of that particular specialty interest. Other students become very passionate about research and teaching throughout their undergraduate education. They've developed extensive experiences serving as supplemental instructors, tutors, mentors, and even researchers as they pursue their future career goal, with perhaps a plan to focus on academic medicine or be a researching physician. Lastly, other students are not interested in careers in medicine and instead might be interested in pre-physical therapy, who those students oftentimes have a passion in pain reduction, increased mobility, and the ability to assist a patient in living an independent life. Whereas pre-dental and pre-optometry students are often drawn to the ability to work with their hands and develop long-term or ongoing relationships with patients. And lastly, the accessibility of a pharmacist to their patients and communities is often a large interest and passion for our pre-pharmacy students. As you can imagine, this is not an exhaustive list of themes or examples, but hopefully does provide you with some tangible ways to identify your why. Now that we have identified your theme, hopefully that will assist you in identifying appropriate extracurricular examples to highlight in your body paragraph. We find a helpful way to think about these body paragraphs as a way to articulate how you've explored and confirmed your career interest. What have you done professionally to know that medicine is the right career for you? Generally, highlighting clinical experiences such as hospital volunteering, free or low-cost clinics, volunteering at a nursing home or hospice, shadowing, scribing, or even a medical mission can help you explain how you know that medicine, dentistry, pharmacy, etc., is the right career for you, as it is through clinical experiences where you've had the opportunity to interact with both patients and providers within your community. There might also be an opportunity to discuss mentorship, teaching, or research, particularly if those experiences are central to your theme. For example, you might discuss serving as a supplemental instructor if you chose your theme of health education, but generally clinical experiences is what allows a student to explain why medicine or their chosen health profession is the right career for them.
When writing your essay, you want to avoid vague generalities like, I want to become a doctor because I want to help people. That's good. If you want to be a doctor, you should definitely want to help people. The problem is there's lots of jobs that help people. That isn't really getting at why being a doctor is the best way for you to help people, or why it's important to you to help people. It's also a good idea to think about, how do you want to help people? Amber and I work with students. We help them. We have chosen not to go into medicine and help people in a different way. So thinking about why this is the right way for you to help people is what you want to think about for your essay. We also recommend using generally specific examples. I know that's not the most helpful term, so let me just define it. You have to get through a lot of content in your personal statement, and you don't have a lot of room. If you try to be too specific, like, I remember the day in April when Mr. Smith came to the clinic, it's going to take a lot of characters to tell that story. But on the other hand, you don't want to do something like, I volunteered at a hospital and I saw stuff. That's too general. Instead, you want to kind of aim for the middle. So you want to talk about things that are specific to you and your experiences, but on a more general level. So instead of talking about Mr. Smith and his diabetes, you could talk about how you saw lots of patients struggling to access healthcare, or how much it meant to many patients when you, the volunteer, sat and talked to them. So it's still specific to you, but on a slightly more general level. At this point in your essay, you have either convinced the readers or you haven't. The goal of the conclusion is to wrap things up. Conclusions for medical school also tend to be pretty short. Because you don't know what your residency will be, you don't want to focus too narrowly on a specialty. You also don't want to go the other way and promise to cure all patients or fix the US healthcare system, because honestly, that's not going to happen. Not even Bernie Sanders could fix US healthcare by himself. He needed Congress at the very least. Instead, we recommend talking about what kind of physician you want to be. Your conclusion could highlight a particular interest of yours, like research or being a health educator. Or you could focus on particular qualities like cultural competency or patient advocacy. You can even do both. Someone who's interested in research might also mention that they have the analytical skills for the role, or someone who wants to address health disparities might highlight their cultural competency. We have another conclusion here to kind of give you an idea. So as an aspiring physician passionate about serving those from underserved backgrounds, I believe that healthcare goes beyond providing the proper diagnosis, prognosis, and treatment. It is important for physicians to provide necessary preventative education, be an advocate for their patients' health, and treat patients with empathy, which are qualities that I'm confident I will embody as a primary care physician. This conclusion wraps the essay up by giving us an idea about what kind of physician this person wants to be. It's also only 2 sentences long. They really can be that short because you are just trying to close your essay confidently. Remember, writing is a subjective and personal process. There are many ways to approach essay writing. If you have a clear vision of your personal statement, that's great, run with it. Remember that the goal of the personal statement is to articulate why you were interested in a particular profession and go beyond simply saying, I like science and I want to help people.
Also be mindful that there is additional written sections to the application. Jen and I have alluded to this throughout today's presentation, but there is a quote unquote work and activity section where students are able to highlight their professional opportunities during college. There's also a disadvantaged or special life experience essay where students are able to add context to their lived experience beyond the classroom and beyond their extracurricular experiences. Additionally, we recognize that at the conclusion of this presentation, you may still need some additional assistance in crafting these application narrative essays and would like to offer the 4 additional resources for your consideration. The National Association of Advisors for the Health Professions does have a Rate for Success Preparing for a Successful Professional School Application booklet that you can purchase from their website. In terms of additional writing resources, Purdue OWL's Writing Lab is a fantastic open source location for English, grammar, syntax, and additional writing resources. Lastly, the WAAHP, which is the Association of American Medical Colleges, has 2 different resources for students in crafting their personal statements for medical schools.
That concludes the formal part of our presentation. We have our information up on this slide. Amber, who is a pre-health advisor at UC Riverside, with her email address and the website for the Health Professions Advising Center. Myself, Jennifer Kavetsky, at the Undergraduate Writing Center at UC Riverside. We have my email address and the link to my writing homepage. We are now opening the floor up to questions.